Hi everyone, my name is Dries Vervoort. I am a digital media artist at Luxion, and I will be presenting today's Keyshot 6 Master Series webinar. This is part 4 about advanced capability features. More specifically, we'll be covering Geometry View and Geometry Editor. Both are Keyshot Pro features, new Keyshot Pro features. We'll also cover some advanced camera control and camera animation techniques, and we'll also do a bit of scripting, so automated processing and rendering capabilities in Keyshot 6 Pro. So without further ado, let's get started with the all-new geometry view. I have here this interior scene, which for those of you who attended the earlier webinar sessions, so if you ever have rendered a scene like this, where your scene is fully enclosed and you have lots of stuff going on, you have besides the HDRI lighting, some area lights as well, and you may have several cameras. It can be quite tough to sort of keep an overview of what assets you all have in this scene. Now in Keyshot 6 Pro, we have an all-new scene preview mode, the geometry view. And I will just toggle this now by hitting the O key. So this gives me the geometry view window. This window, by the way, is dockable, just as the project and the library window, so you can stack it next to or on top of other tabs, or you can detach it for a larger sort of work area. So the geometry view is a very fast OpenGL accelerated preview mode of your scene. Let me just put them sort of side by side, and I will just make this window smaller. So first of all, you have different display styles for this geometry view. There is the default shaded view. You have a flat representation. You have the shaded with wireframe only, and bounding, which for very complex scenes might be a good solution if you have lots and lots of objects, and this is the most efficient way of navigating your scene. But of course, you lose some of the identification, so to speak, of the different parts. So I'll put this to shaded for now. And in this geometry view, you'll notice that as I manipulate my camera, my real-time view updates as well. And that is because my camera with which I'm viewing my geometry view is my active camera. So any change that I make here is updated in real time. but that's maybe not what I want. I might want to just manipulate the view in a geometry view without disturbing my real-time view, and then I have this option here with this camera type button where I can switch my camera to perspective, and now I have sort of a separate control over the view of my geometry viewer. I'll just switch this back to wireframe to see through these walls. And now you can see that I have an overview of all the assets within my scene. You can also choose which elements you want to show in this through this settings button. You can specify the background color. I prefer to have it sort of darkish. You can enable the ground grid, which is aligned with the ground plane of your scene. You can show light elements. You can show camera paths. We will cover this a bit later. Pivots of objects. The camera field of view is this rectangle image plane you see, and you can toggle the visibility of cameras. So you see all these gray boxes, and let me just pick this roof and hide it just for clarity. You can see that I can now see all the cameras that have been saved in my scene. And in the camera tab in the project window, I have all the cameras as well, but it's not obvious which angle they are viewing the scene or how they are configured. And in the geometry view, you can actually see all the cameras available. And also, if I change the cameras, you can see that in the geometry view, my preview changes as well. So the active camera has this red color, while inactive ones are gray. And you can toggle cameras as has always been possible in the camera in the project's camera tab, or you can simply click and select cameras, these gray boxes inside the geometry view. So especially for interiors, the geometry view can be very helpful when just trying to get an overview of what a scene is made of, and just a nice way to keep things organized. Then another interesting application of the geometry view relates to animations. So we have this scene with a ring here, and we are going to animate going to make a camera animation where we sort of make an orbit around this ring and then some inclination. I have one camera here, default one. Again, I'm hitting O to open my geometry view. Let me undock it, and I will decrease the size of my real-time window. And have it like this. again, because my camera in the geometry view is active, any manipulation in a geometry view will update in real time. So let me build this animation now. I will go to the Scene tab in the project window, and I will right-click my camera, and pick Orbit. In the animation settings, I will change the duration. So now I've created an orbit around my ring. But now if I change my camera in a geometry view from active to perspective, you can see this red circle. And this red circle is the path that the camera is following during the animation. So as I preview the animation by scrolling or scrubbing the timeline, you can see that the camera nicely follows this this red path. Now I want to create an inclination on this camera as well. So I will right-click the camera, choose inclination. I will have it match the duration of the first orbit. Let's change the angle. And now as I preview my animation by scrubbing, you can see that my path has changed. You might notice that my camera is not following the same path as the one that is drawn. One thing to remember is that you can always hit this refresh button in a geometry view. If you hover over it, it gives a tiny tooltip. It says refresh camera animation paths, and if I click this button, then you will see that my camera path has been recalculated. And now if I preview the animation again, you can see that my camera follows the animation nicely. The path nicely. Now I also want to zoom out, or more correctly dolly. So I'm going to increase the distance of my camera from my object. I will match the duration again, and perhaps let me zoom out again. To update the path in my geometry view, I'll have to click the refresh button. And now I have 3 camera animations, and the geometry view is intelligent enough to sort of calculate the composite camera path. So the geometry view and these camera paths are a really nice way of getting a preview of what your camera motion is going to look like. Also, if I offset these animations, you can see that the path in the geometry view updates in real time as well. And another reason why the geometry view is very helpful for animation specifically is that it also allows to identify possible jerkiness in your animation. So currently, all my motion easing for all the animations is by default linear, which means that because I have offset this this dolly animation, This means I will have a jerky, yeah, sort of a very sudden transition from one motion to the other. You can see it here, where this third animation, the dolly starts, and where the first two sort of end. You can see, especially here, there is a very sudden change in motion. You can see this by playing back the animation. And one other nice feature of the geometry view, if I change the camera back to the active camera, we do have the preview that is synchronized with the real-time view. But as I pause my real-time rendering and play back my animation, then I still get the update in the geometry view. And because the geometry view is simply it is an OpenGL preview, and it is not being rendered, this allows the animation to be previewed very smoothly. And now you can actually see that my transitions are very, very sharp and very sort of, yeah, unpleasing. So I will change my camera back to the perspective, and now if I change the easing to some smoother options for all animation types, all animation nodes, and then update my camera paths, you can see that now these sharp angles that I had before have been smoothed out. If I change the offset, I can really tune sort of the smoothness that I want in my path. So this is a really nice nice way of controlling the smoothness of camera animations. You can see that the behavior changes as I increase or decrease the animation length. And now if I change my camera back to active camera and preview the animation, you can see that the motion is much smoother now. There are a few, especially with regards to the geometry view, there's another function here for default views. So if you quickly want to, this is perhaps more useful for interiors or product shots. If you want to switch default views, you can do that here as well. So you have front, back. Yeah, might make more sense with a good centered model, but you have these options here as well. Then another big feature I want to cover now is the geometry editor. The geometry editor is, you can think of sort of as an extension of the geometry view. And let me just fetch a good scene to demo this feature. So here we have the same ring scene where I removed some materials. So I just have a simple diffuse shading, and I created some defects in this model. So you can see in this gemstone, I have some holes in my geometry. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. I have a smaller hole here in this small diamond. And also, as you notice on these smaller ones, because it is a diamond, you need these sharp edges to have the interesting refractions and reflections in a diamond. But you'll notice that on this large diamond, these edges have disappeared. So something is up with my my calculated normals, and I will need to get this fixed in order before attempting to render this out with realistic materials. So this is where the geometry editor comes into play. You can invoke this if you have Keyshot 6 Pro by right-clicking on the object you want to repair. So in this case, I right-click somewhere on the surface of this big gemstone, and I'll go all the way down to edit geometry. It will say that editing geometry will break update geometry and live linking. So that's one thing to take note of and understand that if you want to use live linking to update your CAD models, or have some reliable behavior for updating geometry, then you might want to steer away from using the geometry editor, because it will break some of the update functionality. But in this case, we're just trying to repair. This might have been a scene that we got from a client. I will change my camera to perspective. You may notice that if you change your camera, that suddenly your item or your object is out of view, and you might not be able to easily retrieve it. A nice trick is to right-click in the background and then select Center and Fit Model. This will bring the object you want to edit into focus. So if you if you enable Edit Geometry, you will be presented with this big geometry editor mode wizard, and your object that you want to manipulate will be singled out from the rest of your scene. So in this case, I will start by closing the mesh. I will attempt to try to close the gap in this model. So I will click Next, and this will highlight in green all the edge loops, all the continuous loops it was able to detect. And it shows I have 3 loops. So I have this one. If I click one from the list, it highlights the one selected in red. I have this one that shows as one loop because it is just connected at a single point at one vertex. And then I have this one. So I will start by going to the first, and if you select one, you can click the Close Selected Edges button, and that will try to fit a polygon or multiple polygons to close the gap. Proceed with the next one, and then the last one. So you can see that I've now closed my model. But I still have to do one other thing on this object, and that is to get my facets back. So I will go back in the editor. My previous manipulations will be remembered and retained, but I can now choose a different editing mode. So in this case, I want to fix my surface shading, and I will have to edit normals. I will click next, and now I'm in the edit normals editing mode. There are a few display options to show vertex normals and face normals. You might think there's not much to be seen, but that's probably because, oh yeah, I have to select my object, and then the vertex of the vertices of that object will be shown. This value, this input box, is a scale factor for these normal visualization. So we'll disable this for now. What I want is to show these hard edges between all the triangles in this model. And the way to accomplish this is to recalculate the vertex normals using this minimum edge angle. By default it is 45, and if I click calculate vertex normals, then my diamond has become even smoother. Now the edit normals, the way to think about this minimum edge angle is that the edges between triangles will be smoothed if the angle between both triangles is lower than the value that you enter here. So if I have a value of 45 degrees here, then any face, any two faces that have a relative angle less than 45 degrees will be smoothed. And in this case, yeah, all the faces on this front of the diamond will be smoothed. Now, if I want hard edges to show, I will have to pick a very low angle value, because the angles between each face in this front is really low. So if I enter a value of 2, for instance, and calculate vertex normals, I will now have all the facets in my diamonds back, which is exactly what I wanted. So if I click done, then I get my original diamond back. And I can repeat the same for this tiny one, where there is a gap as well. I will do close mesh, click this loop, close, done, and now my diamond is fixed. And if I now go to my library and add a gemstone diamond, I will get proper refractions that I would expect, yeah, and the faceted look that I would expect a diamond to have. So that covers the two modes of the geometry editor. Then we also have two other ones, which I will show with this this hinge model. This is a model I've used for some previous webinars as well. And what I've done now is export my original model as an STL, like this, export to STL from within Keyshot. And this packs all the parts and all the objects into a single mesh. So if I now try to select, for instance, this rod, if I click it, my entire model is selected. There is just a single mesh, even though these are still separate objects. But we can fix this now as well. So if I right click on this model and go to edit geometry, it will give me the warning again, so that it will break update functionality. So what I want to do now is to separate out some objects. So I will go to the split separate objects command. And now in this mode, it says select an object in the list or geometry view. Perhaps what I want to do is to put this long rod and this smaller rod into one object, as well as these pins. So I will click a surface point on this rod, and then it will try to select all the connected and all the connected faces that are separate from any other object in this mesh. So I can click one by holding Control. I can click another one, and it will be added to the selection. Now with these two selected, I can click the split object command, and now I have a different separate object. And by using the visibility toggles, I can hide the other ones. And this object now contains these two rods. I can repeat the process for the pins, so just clicking one surface point, hitting Control, clicking all the pins, and then split object. Now all my pins are in a separate object as well. But perhaps I just want to split all parts of this mesh, and then I can hit split all. But you can also, while still in this command, merge different objects together into one mesh. So if I click all these three that I split out, and then click merge selection, I will have a single mesh, a single object again. So let's now try to split all. And now it has split out every single separate piece of geometry. If I click done now, hit O to hide the geometry view, I have now separate objects. So that's nice. So now I can right click this part and show only, and that will show me just this front bracket. You can see here that we have a hole in this geometry as well. And this is actually a particular case that I also would like to highlight. So I will right click to fix the hole, and I will try to close this gap. I have a small one here as well. So I will click the 6 edge hole here, close, that's filled it up nicely. And now I have two loops where I want to fit a cylindrical face. The way to do this is to select, multi-select both the loops, so they both show in red, and then connect them. So if you make a selection of multiple loops, you can connect the selected edges. So if I click that one, it will create a single loop by adding just one just two polygons to connect both loops. So now I have a single loop, and now I can click close selected edges, and I will have now a cylindrical fitting on this gap. So let me just grab this metallic paint perhaps and change my environment. So now I have no holes anymore in my geometry, but you can see that I have that my reflections are very faceted, and I need to do some normal editing here as well. So I will go into the geometry editor, edit normals, and I can try the default value of 45, and that will give me good results, except for these faces here in these cylindrical holes, as well as these edges. These edges here should not have been smoothed out. So, and then it's just a matter of trying different values until you find somehow the sweet spot, and that's yeah, something I would like to share as well, that it's often just a matter of trying out different values and see what works. If you set it too low, you will get a two-faceted look. If you set it too high, it will look yeah, too smooth. So you kind of have to eyeball and just try out some values. I think 30 works pretty well in this case. So now if I close my geometry editor again, you will see that I have very smooth reflections now. And of course you could repeat yeah, the same process again. Let me find a shiny metal again. Yeah, you can see it here as well. Just a matter of going into the geometry editor, edit normals, trying a value. In this case it works well, so you can just click done. And now you have smooth shading and reflections running across your surface. Yeah, so perhaps for this bracket we want this this mating face to have a different material than the rest of the bracket. And we can do that by again going into the geometry editor. And in this case, we'll click the split object surface command. And this allows you to make a selection of surfaces to cut out of this object into a separate object. And you can do this in two ways. The first method is by splitting angle. In that case, if you, let me pick this one, if you hit a triangle, then for any selection that you make, all the adjacent connected triangles will be included in the selection as it is shown here in green. If the relative angle between all the triangles is lower than the angle that you have here. So in this case, all the faces that have an angle relative to each other smaller than 45 degrees will be included in the selection. If I increase or decrease this value, for instance 5, then faces with a relative angle of smaller than 5 degrees will be included. But in this case, I will get just this sort of planar selection. And a nice thing is, as you select a polygon and adjust this angle, you will see that the yeah, the selection preview updates as well. And also this mode is allows multi-selection, so if I click Control and hit another point, I can add more surfaces to my selection. The second, more simple mode is just polygon selection, and there you can multi-select just individual polygons, or you can do so by on PC hitting Control and clicking, or you can by Shift and dragging marquee select multiple polygons. But in this case I want to select the base surface, so I will use the splitting angle option and hit a polygon, and that will auto select like the planar surface for me. And now if I split object, I will have this as a separate part, a separate subpart. Now if I drag and drop a material from my library, you will see that I will have now a different material on the base plate than the rest of the bracket. So that covers the geometry editor. Then I would like to talk a bit about the advanced lens capabilities that we have. So in Keyshot 6 we have for the lens settings of a camera, besides the perspective and orthographic projections, we now have a shift lens option. Shift lens is something you may be familiar with from photography, especially architectural photography. What you'll notice with a regular perspective lens, if you have, this is by the way a real size, a real scale model, and my camera is 2 meters above ground level, and yeah, with a regular perspective camera, you will notice as I want to have this whole building in my image frame, that I will have to point my camera upwards. So I have an inclination of minus 25 degrees. And this gives the appearance of the building topping over or falling over. And you also get this very heavy base and vertical lines that are converging to a single point. For architectural shots, this is often not very desirable. So the option we provide now is to shift the lens. And I will actually open the geometry viewer again, because it is quite helpful to explain the concept here as well. I will just decouple my camera by switching to the perspective. So you can see here that my camera is tilted upwards, and the reason why I'm having these converging vertical lines is because my image plane, this rectangle of the field of view, is sort of intersecting my or is not running parallel to my vertical lines in my subject. And we can correct this with the shift functionality. So I can simply switch my camera to shift. This will retain the focal length. And my camera now hasn't changed yet, but as I hit the estimate vertical shift button, You will notice that now my image plane is running perfectly parallel with my vertical lines in my subject. And I can now use this vertical shift slider to tune the framing of my subject. So I can change perhaps the distance here, and then I can use this shift control to reframe my subject. And you can actually see the behavior very nicely in the geometry view. As I adjust this slider, you can see my image plane shifting, but the position of my camera is not changing. And we can also adjust the horizontal shift. And even though I have changed these values, my camera is still 2 meters above the ground. So that's a nice way of having more control over architectural shots. Another interesting camera feature that we introduced in Keyshot 6 is the first person mode. So in the camera tab, under position and orientation, we now have enter first person mode, that if you click it, you sort of have a navigation interface for walking through especially interior spaces. So I have this whole interior that is obviously rendered with interior mode, and I will just switch it to performance mode for now to have better performance. As I enable the first person mode, I will get this little head on the this little display here with some arrows. These arrows function if you click the top one, you will move forward, back is backwards, and then you can rotate your view. But you can also use your mouse to navigate this first person mode. And if you right mouse button click and sort of drag out, you're sort of looking around without changing the position of your camera. And again, I can hit or open the geometry view to show what is going on. So make this a bit smaller, and we change the camera to perspective like this to get a view of my camera. So now if I right click and drag, you can see that I'm looking around without changing my camera. By left mouse button click and drag, we can actually walk through a space. So you'll notice as I click, you get this crosshair, which is the center of your selection basically, and every direction you drag out defines what your movement is going to be. So if I go above this crosshair, I will move forward. If I go to the back, I will move backward. If I move my mouse sideways, I will basically turn, and you can walk around like this. Now here is a staircase. If I actually have the ability to walk across these stairs, and there's this option in this widget for ground detection, that if I enable it, it will always try to maintain this eye height. So now if I, with this option checked, move across these stairs, you'll notice that I'm actually moving up and I can just take like a walk around this hall. So, and I can look around, get an interesting view, and then perhaps switch off performance mode to get into accurate interior rendering. And if I'm happy with this particular view, I can hit this accept button, and now I will have a first-person camera here. And if I enable this one, I will have the last sort of position where I was when I was walking around. So this is a nice way of navigating interior scenes. Perhaps if time allows, a couple more minutes, I can discuss briefly the scripting capabilities that we have in Keyshot 6 Pro. So I've prepared this scene of some flags waving. Well, they're not waving right now, but so I have one flag. I should be seeing a preview. Seems like my scene got locked up, so I'm loading this one again. Yeah, so I have one. Oh yeah, and my camera locked. I have one flag here that I patterned to 5 instances, and I simply applied different textures to each of them. So the source file for this was a Maya file. Let me find this one. So this is the original Maya file that I used for the initial flag model. And as I drag this model onto my scene, you can see that the Maya file actually contains an animation for a deformation of the waving of the flag. And I initially imported the flag at a specific frame, being the first frame, so frame 0. And what I wanted to do is to create an animation of a waving of these waving flags. So I actually created this animation. You can see I have these this nice little animation, and I accomplished this with scripting. So with the original animation Maya file at hand, I went to the scripting console, and this is where you sort of create scripts, run scripts, and edit them. And I have from one of our developers here got this add deformable mesh frames to queue script. So if this is, by the way, a Keyshot 6 Pro feature. So if I run this script, then I get this this dialog, and this allows me to select the original Maya file. In the script is all these settings and all these options have been defined in the script. So if I open the script by editing. I should get an editor. Yeah, then I can see the contents and the coding in the actual script. So you can have a look at each script, perhaps make changes as you see fit. But for now, let me explain how I made this animation. Oh, so I will run the script. It allows me to select the Maya file. I specified the output format, and I set the range for the frames from 0 to 1, specified the resolution, set it that it should use the camera, this camera, and then I set the quality for rendering. And if I click OK, I will not do that right now. Perhaps I could do it for 2 frames. So if I click OK, then it will import the Maya file specified, and it will add render jobs with updated geometry to the render queue. So now it will start rendering. I'll cancel this for now. So by doing that, I got these frames with each with updated geometry, and using these frames, I used the encode video script that is actually part of the Keyshot 6 installation by default. So if I run this script, I can specify the folders where the folder where the frames were contained. I can specify the file name of the frame and the range of frames to encode, as well as the frame rate. And by clicking OK, it will encode a video. So using 2 scripts, I was able to create this animation. Now, scripting is quite a complex topic with many different aspects and to it, which will not be covered in this session today. But if you want to know or learn more about the possibilities of scripting, or sort of get a feel for what you can do with it, then there are a few great resources. So first of all, as you open the scripting console, you will get this this help section, and these point to the scripting documentation that we have for Keyshot. So as you open that link, you will get documentation on all the modules, as well as a quick start. So if you want to dive into scripting, the quick start is a very nice way of sort of getting familiar with the very basics of scripting, and scripting for Keyshot in particular. So even though it is just starting from print hello world, by the end you will actually be setting some some Keyshot specific rendering sort of functionality. So the quick start is a very nice way of getting started. And then if you if you have specific questions, then there's always the Keyshot forums, where we have a dedicated topic under the technical discussions section. We have a scripting subforum where you can post your questions or your remarks or any difficulties you may have, and we'll be very glad to help you out if you should you have any problems with scripting. Also, if you went through this quick start and you want to take things to the next level, then there are a few great resources. Two notable ones are these two. Dive into Python 3 because the scripting in Keyshot is based on Python 3.4, and learnpython.org. These two are especially nice because they are quite lightweight and they start from the very basics, and both are quite excellent, but the main difference between the two is that maybe this dive into Python is more explanatory or more it sort of tells a story and you kind of have to follow along, while the Learn Python learning resource is more hands-on. So if you click on a sort of lesson, like this one for instance, you will actually get sort of an exercise-based learning experience. So you can actually see some code and it will run it here in the browser, and then you have some exercise here as well. So you can start an exercise, and if you're able to sort of solve it and you get a good solution, then you will get feedback about it and progress. So both of these are quite excellent resources for getting diving deeper into whatever is possible with Python in general, and whatever you learn about Python in general can be applied to the scripting in Keyshot as well. So I think that covers the topics for today. I know I went a little bit over time, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Hey, Dries, great stuff. Can you show where users can find that deformable mesh script? I believe that's on the forum, right?
Yeah, that's on the forum as well. So I'm here on the forum. Yeah, there is this topic by Heine Stockholm, one of our developers, who was kind enough to make a deformable mesh Python script. So he posted this topic and he added the script here. He gives a workflow overview of how to use it. Maybe something I could show is that if you download the script and you want to get it into Keyshot, then you can open the scripting editor. I already have it here, but let me just delete it for now. So I will remove this one. One thing to note is that if you remove a script, it will be permanently removed. So it will also remove the script file itself, not just the entry into this list. So if I want to edit again, I can click the import button, navigate to the location where it was downloaded, and then open it, and now it will be added to my scripts. These scripts, they are put in your Keyshot 6 resource folder, the same folder where your rendering folder is, or your materials. There you will have a scripts folder, and now you will have the deformable mesh script here as well. So you could add a script by import, or you could, I could make a copy of this one. And oh no, yeah, you just have to use the import function, and then it will show up here.
Okay. Can you also just quickly show how to specify the camera for that script?
Okay, yeah. Um, mm, let me see. So yeah, I have just one. I have this camera here. Scripts run. So by default, it uses the camera that is currently active. Cam. So if you want to have a different camera, you can type your camera in here. So if I want to use a perspective, you can type persp. But as it says, leave blank for current. If you just want to use the active camera, you can just leave it blank as well. Also in this script will create render jobs that go into the render queue. But you might not want to render them immediately, or if you want, or you might want to send them to a network rendering queue, perhaps instead. So if you want to do that and you don't want to immediately render them out, you uncheck this process queue after running the script, because otherwise the rendering will start once the jobs have been created. Another thing to note is once a script is active and running, as it states here in this script runner dialog, as long as the script is running, your whole Keyshot is kind of locked up. So it is not possible to select any Keyshot interface elements. So you have to cancel the script and even remember to click OK here, enable to interact with Keyshot again.
Okay. And then one other thing that I'd like to mention is that you can also add animations inside of Keyshot, so you can animate that camera, and those will all be included in those files that you send to the queue. And also, if you say animated your camera in Maya, then you can use the plugin or export as an FBX to get that camera animation inside Keyshot, and that will also be included in the frames that you send to the queue.
Yeah, I can expect we will probably have a more extensive webinar on scripting specifically somewhere in the future, because there's a lot of stuff to tell about all the automation you can do with scripting. But
Definitely. All right, well, thank you so much, Dries. That was awesome. For everyone, you can view this webinar again on our YouTube page at youtube.com/keyshot3d, and also at keyshot.com/learning. There you can also find the other webinars in this series, as well as other tutorials and quick tips and videos. And then I believe we will be having another webinar in this series next week. Is that correct?
yeah, next week.
So keep an eye on an email invite for that, and hopefully we will see you all there.